I'm going to give you in this video an overview of inventory control, so you can kind of get an idea of why it's so important. Okay, you are a department store. You buy a whole bunch of lawnmowers so that you can sell them in your department store. Well, you anticipated a good year for lawn mowing. Here comes the problem. The problem is, suddenly you're in a drought. Grass all dries up. Nobody wants to mow the yard. Nobody has a reason to mow the yard because all the grass is dry. Now you have a problem. There is no way you're going to get those lawnmowers sold when you're having a drought. But you got to keep a hold of those lawnmowers, because as soon as that drought's over with, those lawnmowers have value. Of course, they probably would have value next year. But you're stuck with all that inventory. You're still paying your employees to try to sell those lawnmowers, despite the fact you're not selling them. You're still paying the electricity or whatever to keep the lawnmowers safe and dry and well, despite the fact you're not selling them. See how that can become a problem? Now then, let's say you're a clothing store. Now, you think that you know the hot styles for spring. So you order a whole bunch of clothes to sell in your department store to sell for spring. But then a hot new fashion trend takes off. And all these people start calling you and they want to buy these hot new clothes. You don't have them because you thought that this other line of clothing was going to be a real hot item. So you made an error in judgment. Now you've got all these clothes in your department store that aren't selling, and you got all these customers who are upset because they want to buy this hot new fashion trend and they can't do it in your store because you don't have those clothes. See the problem? Now then, let's say you get a super sweet deal when you buy a bunch of clothes to put in your department store to sell. But then it turns out, as the people buy the clothes and they start wearing the clothes, that they find out that the clothes are not as quality made as you thought they were, as they thought they were. Now they're returning those clothes back to you saying, hey, this isn't near the quality you promised us. Now you're stuck with a bunch of clothes that you really can't sell because the quality's poor, and you got a whole bunch of angry customers. See the problem? Now then, let's say that you buy a few black dresses that you're going to sell in your clothing store, okay, and you don't think they're much of a hot item. All of a sudden, these black dresses become a hot item. And now you've bought too few of the items to sell in your store, and these customers are complaining to you because you don't have their size and you don't have as many of the black dresses as they want. You see the problem? That's why inventory control is a big deal. Because you can disappoint people just as much by not having the merchandise that they want as you can by having the merchandise that they want, but then they later find out it's not as good a quality, or having a ton of merchandise that you thought was going to be a hot seller and it turns out it didn't sell very well. And this happens in retail all the time. You see those kind of problems that arise? That's why you have to focus on inventory control. You don't want to bring things into your store that aren't going to sell, but you don't want to not bring into your store things that really will sell. That's not easy to do. So, and it really gets bad with Christmas season. Christmas season, you've got your toys, you've got your gifts of all kinds. You can stand there and you could bring in a whole bunch of those tablets, you know, those they're sort of like the smartphones, but it'd be like the iPad, okay? So you bring all this stuff into your store, you think it's going to sell real hot. But it turns out that the stuff is defective. You now have to ship it back to the manufacturer. You're losing a lot of sales. That could be a problem. So you see why inventory control is such a big deal for retailers, especially now when their profit margins are so small to begin with. I mean, if you bring in a lot of hot merchandise and suddenly you have an increased amount of theft in your store, you're still out the door. Your insurance premiums go up. You have to hire extra security. It's a real bumming deal. That's what retailers face today. So you see why inventory control is such a big deal? There you go. All right. I will tell you more in a future video. Stay tuned.